French President Emmanuel Macron is facing new protests today from the French police department. He's promised a one-time €300 bonus for police officers, but that does not seem to be enough. All of that comes after weeks of yellow vest protests that have been Macron's stiffest challenge yet. But after a series of measures designed to appease public anger, the French president is still trying to show he's in control. Well, France 24's Chris Moore is covering this story for us from the French Ministry of Interior in Paris. He joins us now from there. Chris, the yellow vest protest was the first big crisis for Emmanuel Macron since he took office 18 months ago, now added by the police. So what might come out of this second round of talks today with the French police?
That's right, yes, those yellow vest protests you were talking about, the biggest crisis really for Emmanuel Macron, and the way really coming out of the blue, although they did give a voice to a lot of frustration that had been bubbling below the surface, a lot of grievances which had the backing of the majority of the French population. It ended up with Emmanuel Macron giving a number of concessions to the protesters, and now, as you say, the police want their pound of flesh. They say that dealing with those protests, dealing with the terrorist threat of recent years has left the police force overstretched and exhausted. And what's more, they say now is the time to bring up a number of issues, some of which go back decades, not least the fact that they say some 23 million hours worth of overtime remains unpaid. The police unions here in France have traditionally been relatively influential. They'll be hoping for further concessions in talks with ministers in the Interior Ministry behind me this afternoon. And as you were saying there, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, he was a leader who promised to be different to those who'd gone before, saying that he wouldn't give in to pressure from the street, that he would balance France's budget, make it more credible in Berlin and in Brussels. And the last month, really, all of that has had a pretty brutal encounter with reality on the streets of France.
Well, Chris, what about the yellow vest protests themselves have been much bigger? We saw the numbers dwindling last Saturday, which was the fifth big protest day. What's going to happen this Saturday, the last Saturday before Christmas?
It's difficult to put. There's always been two elements, really. First of all, the images which make TV news bulletins around the world, namely the at times violent clashes here on the streets of Paris. Last weekend, there were, frankly, probably more police officers out on the streets than there were protesters. The government and authorities will be hoping that is the same this weekend. Outside the French capital, it's always been more of a case of blocking petrol stations, roundabouts, motorway polling booths, that kind of thing. Participation has dropped off fairly dramatically in the last week or so, police moving in on a number of sites there, and the government obviously will be hoping that that's a trend that continues. Though, as I said, it is unpredictable, and the fact of the matter is that although the majority of the French public don't approve of the violence we've seen on the streets of Paris, those basic grievances of the yellow vest protesters, well, they very much have the sympathy of the French public, so it is a difficult situation for the government.
Chris, thanks for that. That's France 24's Chris Moore reporting there from the Interior Ministry in Paris. Now, the King of Belgium